It's not just click this button here, but it's people who really understand legal, who really understand the process, who can help them navigate this minefield in a really sophisticated way. Because again, it's this ruthless onslaught of technology. It's not going away. This isn't going to change.
Today on Law Next, Rakesh Madhava, CEO of the e-discovery and trial prep company Nextpoint. It was 20 years ago that he founded Nextpoint as one of the earliest cloud-based legal tech companies. As you'll hear, his path to becoming a founder wasn't the typical one, and the path the company has taken since he founded it also hasn't followed a typical formula. But now, as the company marks its 20th year in business, the year has developed into a particularly notable one, with Nextpoint having closed a significant round of financing, its first ever outside financing, made a major acquisition, and, as we speak, about to convene a virtual user conference, OnPoint 2021. This is Bob Ambrogi, and you're listening to Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to today's interview, a quick note about the sponsors whose generosity makes this show possible. In this week's Sponsor Spotlight, we're taking 5 minutes to speak with Eric Laughlin, CEO of Agiloft, a global leader in no-code contract lifecycle management. Eric, welcome to the show.
Great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Eric, you were named CEO in August 2020 in the middle of the pandemic after a career in which you held executive roles at Ernst & Young and Thomson Reuters. What has this year been like for you, personally and professionally?
Well, personally, it's been incredibly invigorating, I think is the right word. I love this job, and I'm pretty blessed to have been asked to lead a company that was poised for growth and full of great people. I've been able to work with this great new team at Agiloft, and then I've been able to work closely with a lot of my colleagues from around the legal ecosystem and creative partnerships. I'll be honest, I'm a little uncomfortable acknowledging just all of that personal happiness, given how challenging of a year it's been, but it has been pretty amazing to see the resilience of the Agiloft team, whether it's someone with a family member sick at home or a child's mental health being challenged, when you are working at a top-notch performance level during those conditions, it's pretty amazing. From a business perspective, I'm incredibly proud of the team's results. We've more than doubled our new customer bookings. We've had over 50% growth in our ARR, and that's really the result of a team and of a partner ecosystem that can really deliver.
Eric, the CLM market is rapidly growing. How do you view that market generally, and how do you place Agiloft in that market?
Well, I think I'll start with the obvious, which is CLM market is full of buying activity right now, and Agiloft is fortunate to be in the top tier of providers. I think that's largely due to our flexible platform and our great customer happiness scores, great references. When I think about the buying activity, there's really two elements that come to mind. The first is that I think the business value of CLM has never been more clear. I think we've emerged from a phase of thinking that CLM was about legal efficiency and now consider it more to be about enterprise productivity. And that creates a lot of momentum for buying and for getting contracts processes right. And then on the solution side, I think that CLM platforms like Agiloft have made it to a point of maturity that they just weren't at 5 years ago. What used to pass for CLM, a few years ago, and maybe what some startups are still trying to pass off as CLM, was really a glorified repository. And what resonates now is really playing to the strengths of a mature platform like Agiloft, whether it's very flexible business process engines, deep systems that sort of turn contracts into data, or extensible systems like Agiloft that allow customers from across the business to interact with contracts where they normally work, whether it's in their CRM or Word or Outlook or on messaging platforms. So, the business value is there and solutions are ready. So companies are investing in CLM.
What have been some of the key steps you've taken in the past year to support Agiloft and its customers?
I think internally, our central theme is around investing in customer success. And that's really doubling down on a hallmark, strength for Agiloft, whether it's building on a talented professional services team or focusing Andy Wishart's product team on doing more listening and engaging with customers. And we're very near to the launch of our new customer community, which is exciting. I think maybe with a little more depth, I'll go into we've been really trying to cultivate an ecosystem of providers around Agiloft, whether it's the global SIs who provide CLM transformation services, our partners such as Deloitte and TCS and Wipro and EY, or CLM focused SIs like Mainspring, HBR, and Qualitas. We've added legal managed services providers like our friends at Elevate and Factor. And in each case, we're trying to build what amounts to a tailored solution for a client that's a combination of our goodness at Agiloft and our partners. And that might be implementation, but more likely it's consulting like business process reengineering or template rationalization or change management services. In any case, it's the idea is how do you combine strengths and make sure that you have a successful deployment and a successful life with Agiloft.
What's next for the company? What's ahead?
Well, really briefly, I think it's always to continue the mission, right? Keep elevating contracts, keep building sustainable contract processes on our flexible platform. We want to have that impact with lots of new customers, and we want to engage our existing customers in their journey. Quick teaser, we have our release coming up, and the theme for us is connected experiences. So, it'll be filled with new ways to connect to the various users across the enterprise. So it's been an exciting year, first year in the chair, and the second promises to be the same.
Well, great to catch up with you, Eric, and thanks for joining me for this LawNext Sponsor Spotlight. To learn more about Agiloft, visit agiloft.com. Now on to today's interview. Rakesh, welcome to LawNext.
Thanks, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're speaking, as we are speaking, it is the 20th year in which you have been doing business. And I want to talk a little bit about how you got started and how you grew the company. But I thought it might make sense to just start with you telling listeners a little bit about Nextpoint, what it is and what you do.
Sure. Nextpoint is a cloud-based application that helps lawyers manage the confidential client data in their cases. And so we provide an entire host of tools and services around practicing e-law. So as the practice continues to migrate to a digital first posture, a whole new set of challenges have come up in order for litigators to get their work done. And so, what differentiates our platform, we think, from, other platforms that they might be used to is that we are truly focused on being a system of record that attorneys can start loading data in from the point they're doing collections and before they filed a complaint, and have the data remain in the same platform all the way through either settlement or verdict or whatever the disposition of the case is at the end. And so, for our clients, that delivers a lot of value in them not needing to shop for multiple solutions and try to integrate everything, but that they have one single source of truth that they can rely on. The other part of our business that's really critical is our engagement in our services team that focuses on leveling up law firms by training, onboarding, and advice and consultations regarding their standardized workflows and the way that they get their work done in a normal course of business. And we also have a team of experts that focuses on tackling challenges within specific matters. So a lot of our clients will be using the software and having a great experience, and at some point during the year, they'll run into a particularly knotty problem as it pertains to electronic data, whether it's difficult data that they've received that they need to from their own client that they need to process and review, or whether they've received problematic data from a producing party. We have a team of experts that jumps on and really gets in the weeds with them and makes sure that we can get a successful outcome for them in their case.
So e-discovery, litigation, what would you call that? Litigation prep, I guess, pre-litigation software, and then services around all of that.
Exactly. I mean, it's, we call it our litigation suite. It has, features depositions, deposition transcripts, the ability to store pleadings and create doc treatments and present evidence within a case in a user-friendly manner. Ironically, what used to once be known as, that was the discovery part, right? And so that's our litigation suite. Our e-discovery suite is really focused around all the workflows specific to large-scale e-discovery reviews.
Yep.
So, if you have multiple reviewers or you have very large data sets and you need analytics and, ways to be able to sift through that data, we have a set of tools in the discovery suite that help folks get through that.
You are cloud-based. And as I said earlier, this is your 20th year in business. It's not uncommon for it's more common than not for a company such as yours to be cloud-based these days. But 20 years ago, that was not so common. And kind of the way you got started overall is unusual. I mean, you don't have sort of the typical founder's journey. I don't know if there's such a thing as a typical founder's journey, but certainly the way you think of the founder's journey these days is not the way you got into this. So I wonder if you could step back a little bit and talk about how, what it was that got you started down this path and how you got this company started.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is most people when they meet the CEO and founder of a cloud-based technology assume I'm either, I have a background as a programmer, I was a developer, I was a technical founder, or I was, a salesperson, or a serial entrepreneur that like went and raised a lot of capital to do it. But my story is really out of the legal industry, and so I got started in the legal industry, literally my first job out of college as a paralegal, and spent probably 5 years both here in Chicago and in New York working for large firms in document review. And primarily, if you're a paralegal or a first or second year associate in a large firm, then that's what you're spending most of your, at least at the time, that's what you were spending, the vast majority of your time doing. So I got really started in the business from the ground up, from walking around corporate offices, reviewing files, sending them to copiers, bait stamping them, setting up in a conference room for opposing counsel to come in and pick which pieces of paper they wanted to get a copy of and look at.
Right.
And
An important word there is paper. I mean, we're talking paper day. We're not talking about digital review.
No, we're talking about the late '90s, and it
Yeah.
was still it was exclusively paper. There was, when I started as a paralegal, there was no electronic
Right.
production.
Yeah.
But during that part of my career was the first wave of internet technologies hitting law firms.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been tasked, being the young technology savvy paralegal, to work on a particular matter that involved a dozen co-counsel. And it was the first time that there's an attempt to use the internet to share data, to share pleadings and drafts of pleadings, and for coordination between all these firms. And it was on a platform called Lexis Counsel Connect,
Mm-hmm.
which was one of the early internet-based e-room systems.
One of the first, yeah.
Yeah, and that sort of set a light off for me. I was like, look, between the ability for this technology to disrupt the paper-based exchange processes, we were still largely sort of scanning paper documents, right? But even at the time, there were paper documents that had been created on using WordPerfect,
Right, right.
or Word.
Or typewriters,
Exactly. And so I was like, well, it's obvious that this is all going to go electronic, and this seems like this seems like a far more interesting career for me than actually becoming an attorney.
So what did you do at that point? How did you get into that move into the electronic world?
Yeah, from being a paralegal, I got a job at a large consulting company, FTI Consulting, in their litigation group that did large scale trial preparation.
Yeah.
So, at the time there were a lot of technical challenges around getting all the documents that you needed into court and getting them up and presented in front of juries. And so that's kind of where I cut my teeth on the legal technology business. And then in 2000, with the first dot-com boom, I left FTI and went to a early startup in the internet biz called Hubbard One that built kind of the first generation of websites.
Right. Which was later acquired by Thomson Reuters.
It was later acquired by Thomson Reuters, and so it was at Hubbard that I kind of learned the ins and outs of the technology business, and or the internet business, I should say, and HTML and how you can hook up HTML to databases and build websites. So a bit in that process, I was like, I have an idea, and I had been talking to guys at Hubbard about saying, you're on the marketing side building the marketing websites. There's a real use and a need for this technology on the litigation side, on the other side of the fence here. and they weren't particularly interested in it. And I thought it was a great idea, and so I left Hubbard and I started my own company.
And when you started Nextpoint, I mean, you didn't start it necessarily as a software company. You started it more as a consultancy, right?
Yeah, we started as a technology consultancy where we bought technology off the shelf and helped firms put together all the data that they needed in large complex litigation, right? Now, the how we got started in terms of building software was that at the time, I thought that using the internet as a delivery mechanism for consulting services was a real differentiator, right? That was what was going to separate us from the large traditional consulting companies, was that we had, everybody on the staff knew how to do HTML. We built extranets, we secured them. When we had deliverables, we posted them, we emailed them to people, and these were all kind of like, that was the first time people had worked with consulting firms in that kind of method.
Right. Remembering litigation extranets were all the thing for a while there.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. No, that was right. That was kind of version one. That's where everyone started out, was like, it's almost this hierarchy of needs, right? Like the first step here is that, well, we know that we can at least share these traditional electronic files in a more efficient manner. And so that's what we had an extranet product, and from there acquired a formalized web development firm, and started, we started out with a deposition transcript tool that I thought was kind of the obvious place to start in terms of how how data was going to get shared, and then we were off to the races.
And so you started, I mean, something else that's interesting about the way your company grew is that when you think of a lot of e-discovery companies, they kind of followed the left to right of the EDRM model. You kind of went the other direction, going from, the right end of that model, or even off the scale a little bit, and back back into the review and production and all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, when the first time I went to EDRM and talked to Tom and George and kind of told them about what I was doing, they were thrilled. They were like, "We've been looking."
Sosha and Tom Gelman, who were the guys who started the EDRM model. Yeah,
yeah, they were like, "This is great. We've been looking for somebody who could do the presentation piece." And so, we let up that group at the time, and I was really reluctant to go left. I said, it's a very messy problem. It's a difficult problem. There are lots of, well-funded companies in there really scrapping away at it. And we should just kind of concentrate on what we're doing over on the right side. But ultimately, that was going so well, and our users were having such a great experience, that they kind of pulled us over and said, we love this trial software. It's incredible. It's completely streamlined our processes. We'll never go to trial without it again. But we go to trial once every 2 or 3 years. And really, the problem that we're having that's top of mind for us right now is the problems that we're having in e-discovery. And so it was about, I'd say, 3 years after the launch of our litigation suite that we formally launched an e-discovery suite.
So how long ago was that in the history of your company? You started the company in 2001, and so at what point did you start to move into e-discovery?
Yeah, 2005 was really kind of where we started product development, and we had a litigation product up and launched by 2006. It was a pretty short turnaround to get the litigation suite. And it's around, I'm going to say 2008, 2009 that we launched our first version of the Discovery Suite.
I have to wonder, as you're launching a Discovery Suite in the cloud in 2008, 2009, what were the obstacles that you faced in getting lawyers to understand what you were doing? I mean, the cloud was still kind of a foreign or alien or even scary concept for a lot of lawyers at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was the thing that I had not, ignorance is bliss as sometimes. And, I had not anticipated that there was going to be a lot of hesitancy to this, because to me, as a technologist, it seemed obvious that this was going to be the next generation of the shift from desktop computing to cloud computing, and that the implications of being able to access elastic resources both on the compute and storage sides were going to have huge implications for cost. But it was initially not well received at all. I mean, I faced a lot of skepticism. We had folks who, there were a lot of people who just said this is a really dumb idea, and no one, lawyers will never, store data in the cloud, and it's a fad. All of this cloud stuff. There's too many jurisdictional issues. There's too many security issues, and and it was. I mean, it was before. We launched the product before there was an iPhone. You know,
Right.
so, but they said the same thing about, iPhones and social
Right.
media, and that was that was kind of the cycle at the time in terms of how people were embracing cloud technology.
Yeah. So how did you get past that challenge, and at what point did you get past that challenge, and at what point did you see that your business was in fact going to be viable and sustainable in terms of cloud-based e-discovery technology?
Yeah, I mean, we just stuck it out. It was a
Yeah.
grind.
Yeah.
It was a hand-to-hand combat. For every client, for every project, we had to go through entire security audits. Obviously, we had to put together encryption at rest and encryption in transit protocols, and two-factor authentication. We had to check off all those boxes.
Right.
But ultimately, what it came to was that we had something that people wanted to buy. Right. And so, while there were lots of sort of, parts of the organization that were saying they were entirely opposed to this, this is the innovation cycle. This is what disruptive technologies do, is that they fix a problem that customers need, and then customers start adopting it. And so it was really pretty direct. We just listened to people and asked them what they needed the software to do. And people don't care if you're not a technologist, if it's not the thing you're thinking about all the time, they just care about getting their work done. They don't care if it's a local install or cloud install or multi-tenant, or they want fast, responsive software that helps them gain productivity.
Yeah. What about the customers who use your product? Who are they today, and how has that changed in terms of the makeup of your customers over the years?
Yeah, I mean, historically, we really, with the litigation suite, and it continues to be that way. It has a very particular use case for very large litigation, right?
Hmm.
So for
Hmm.
multi-district litigation, mass tort litigation, it had that particular appeal at the time because the volume of data was, too much for the existing in-house systems, right? Like, an
Right.
in-house IT department did not want to deal with this huge spike that wasn't in their budget,
Right.
for the year. And so that was the sort of the first beachhead that we established, right?
Right.
So while we're working, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, that's really one of the prime advantages of the cloud, I think, and there, at least the selling points of the early days, right, was the sort of the elasticity of a cloud-based platform in terms of spikes in data or reductions in data or whatever else.
They would go to our competitors who would give them an estimate for 2 to 3 times as much as it would cost with us, and they were talking about 6 to 8 month implementations,
Right.
and a minimum of a 3-year contract. And meanwhile, we'd walk in and we'd say, just start giving us data. We're going to tee up a database in minutes. Start pumping it in. You're going to be working. You're going to be working within hours, now,
Yeah.
not months.
Flip the switch and we're ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was the beauty. That's the beauty of it, and that
Yeah.
was the thing that always appealed to me was how customer friendly it was as a model. Right. It was
Yeah.
in many ways more difficult for us, right, in
Right.
terms of pricing and in terms of customer lock-in, and all the traditional things that software companies had done were not avenues that were available to us. But the beauty of it was just was compelling.
Yeah. So those big MDL cases were a big part of how you got started working on those. Has that evolved over the years in terms of the kinds of cases or the kinds of clients you're working with?
Yeah, well, so we were fortunate that that business line was really performing well for us, and simultaneous to that, we had decided that there's, and a lot of it had to do with the Discovery Suite, right? Like we were like, hey, there's we're hearing from the marketplace when I was going to legal tech conferences and making the rounds around our clients, like everyone was saying like we're facing opposing counsel who's smaller and underfunded, right? And Sedona at the time, they would call this asymmetrical litigation, right? Where you had one party that had a $5 million technology infrastructure, and you had another party that had nothing, or had a very limited resources to be able to manage electronic data. And so we started pursuing a strategy of developing a product line and pricing targeted specifically towards small and mid-sized law firms. And that business, started just kind of took off for us. And so the MDL business has continued, and that part of the business continues to grow, and we continue to see demand and increasing requests for features. But the ability for us to add clients who are spending $10,000, $20,000, $40,000 a year, where they didn't have a ton of options before, has been a real key driver of our success.
Over the 20 years during which Rakesh Madhava created and grew Nextpoint, he never took outside financing and never made an acquisition. Both of those changed this year as the company is announcing that, for the first time, it's raised a round of outside financing and made its first acquisition of another company. When we return to our conversation, we'll talk about the details of both the financing and the acquisition and what they mean for the company and its customers. But first, this word from the sponsors who make this show possible. Paradigm believes that when perspectives shift, possibilities unfold. Paradigm offers 4 leading legal software solutions that help you manage, automate, and grow your firm. The practice management platforms Practice Panther, Bill for Time, and Mariscase, and the online payment solution HeadNote. Learn why more than 40,000 lawyers trust its products to shift the paradigm of how they practice law. Find out all about it at joinparadigm.com. Welcome back to Law Next. As we're speaking today with Rakesh Madhava, his company, Nextpoint, is marking its 20th year in business, having launched as one of the earliest cloud-based discovery and litigation platforms. Madhava built the company into what it is today without ever taking outside financing or acquiring other products. That is now changing as the company has raised its first outside financing and made its first acquisition. As we return to our conversation, we pick up there as I ask Madhava about these developments and what they mean for the company and its customers. Over the years, as you've built up this company, one way in which you perhaps have differed from some of the other companies out there is that you've pretty much bootstrapped it. I mean, you have not taken outside financing or outside investment over the course of pretty much the last 20 years. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And it's not pretty much. It's like 100%. It's 100% bootstrapped. Like it is.
Well, I say pretty much because that's changing, right? I mean, you are now taking investment.
We are, but it is it's all a question of what you want to define as investment, right?
Okay.
And so we've been able to secure additional financing but it's non-dilutive to we haven't sold any of the company.
Right.
Non-equity. We have banks coming in and they're looking at their business and they're like, we can extend you a large line of credit. So that's, that is what is and that's something that we're just announcing now, is that we've raised $4.5 million in credit financing to continue to invest in the business, to continue to invest in our product growth and our product development and our onboarding services, and to ensure that we can meet the needs of the demands in the marketplace.
Yeah. So why did you choose over the years to go that way in terms of bootstrapping the company over the years, as opposed to seeking some kind of an outside investment when so many other companies seem to be taking the other route?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an economist by background. Like, that was my undergraduate degree. And, supply and demand and market forces were things that kind of made sense to me in terms of, like, you set up you sell a product for X, you build in a product you make a reasonable profit, you use that profit, reinvest in the business, and make sure that you have the discipline to continue doing that, right? And I've always saw that the need to go out and borrow a lot of money and sell big chunks of the business is a failure business strategy. Like, that is not that's not what successful companies do. They don't need to go out and borrow millions of dollars. And the fact that it would, it kind of gets celebrated, it to me is counterintuitive. Like it should be like, like, oh man, that really sucks that you had to go, you had to go, that you needed to borrow another $50 million in order to keep your operations running. And, some of the numbers that we've seen, in the industry in terms of revenue numbers relative to loss numbers are, I mean, I find them astounding that a company that is making $60 million and losing $30 million is considered, is considered successful. And
Right.
so, and culturally, that's what we've been about. We believe that, if you have a good business with a good product and you treat customers well, then that's the path to building a sustainable business, not just borrowing money from anybody who'll throw it at you.
Right. What is it now? Why now are you taking this growth financing? What do you hope to do with the financing?
Yeah, I mean, the reality for us as we were looking at our as we're looking at our sales and marketing motions and seeing what the market opportunity is that the ability for us to keep up with the demand has actually outstripped our ability to self-finance it. And so, we could, and this is the thing with SaaS businesses, right? As somebody who's become kind of a student of SaaS economics, the way it works is that companies get financing when it's clear and apparent that they can be sustainable to run on their own, right?
Hmm.
And but that they have and this is the way we were able to do it non-dilutive, right? Is that
Hmm.
our financing partners recognized just from looking at the dynamics of the business and looking at our financials, that with additional growth capital, we could get ahead of the curve, right? So that we're not necessarily just going hand to mouth, but that we can that if we can invest ahead of the demand curve, that demand inevitably catches up.
Yeah. Something else that happened this year, this somewhat eventful 20th year for you guys, what was an acquisition you made? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. We're also announcing this month that it's our first acquisition of another product. It was a deposition transcript management product called War Room. It was published by a company called Launchpad Labs. It's a product development company. And what we were seeing in a couple of clients that they were using both products, right? They were using Nextpoint and they were using War Room. And we were curious as to what was happening with the folks at War Room and interested in getting to know them and vice versa to see if there was any strategic alignment. And it wound up that there was that they felt like that they were going to be better served by helping us sort of build out our entire litigation suite as opposed to trying to build a competing product against it, and that we could benefit from the additional resources and firepower that they brought to helping us deliver new innovations. And so as we started, we looked at our client list, we interviewed a number of our clients, we asked them, how they felt about this. We got an enthusiastic response from all of them. And so we made the decision to sort of buy the product, and their customer base from them. And they're continuing to help us on the litigation suite by merging the code bases, building out new features and functionality that kind of hit our product roadmaps.
So, what are some of those features and functionality? What does your product roadmap look like right now?
Yeah, I mean, within the litigation suite, it's continued sophisticated management of depositions and deposition transcripts. So the ability to highlight, create excerpts, create digests, connect that stuff to video, right? To be able to generate video clips of key parts of deposition testimony, the ability to sync those up with exhibits as they're being marked during depositions, that entire workflow going digital, right, and going remote has been one of the most significant changes in our business. I mean, if you had told me at the beginning of COVID that, civil litigation was going to and criminal litigation for that matter, was almost going to entirely shut down for 18 months,
Hmm.
it was unclear as to like, well, what's going to happen with these cases that are filing. And what we saw was that the industry adapted and that, remote depositions and the ability to keep, moving files forward while working from home was something everyone adapted to very quickly. Now, so it's given us a big, a big list of stuff behind it now, where, we were good enough to get them over the hump, and now it's like people want more. So that for sure, that's kind of the focus in the litigation suite is around remote and work from remote, right?
Right. Yeah.
That partners who are used to getting binders from associates and paralegals, literally physically walking in their office, printing them out, handing it to them, like that can't happen in a remote world, in a touchless world. And so refining those workflows to make that easier for everyone to collaborate is a major focus.
Yeah.
On the e-discovery side, where we're really doubling down our efforts is on the use of machine learning and AI, and to just start to try to grapple with the explosion in the volume of data that we don't see any sign of abating. It is a ruthless march of technology going forward, and people are just going to be generating not only more data, but an incredibly diverse variety of data from, Slack and Gmail and Salesforce and cloud-based platforms, right? Like this was largely a Microsoft business for many years, and that dynamic has completely changed.
Right. Functionally, how does that work? I mean, are we talking about kind of two distinct platforms here? One focused on litigation and deposition review and trial preparation and presentation, and another focused on e-discovery? Or do they work in synchronicity with each other?
They work in synchronicity. Think about it as kind of layers, right? Is like your first layer, right, in terms of when we think about our technology stack, is just the storage layer. So, and that meets a very significant challenge, is someplace to put the data, right? Particularly in a world of increasing SOC 2 compliance and cybersecurity concerns. You can't throw things on shared servers that everybody in the firm can access, right? You need much more granular security controls over your data. So that's the first step, is the storage step, right? The second one winds up becoming the sort of like extract and transform and load, the processing step, where you can take that just data and stick it somewhere, right? That you can do something with it. Then you've got the
OCR
litigation suite,
and dedupe and all that kind of stuff. And
exactly. So that stuff gets put into a shape that people can deal with it. And then we have the kind of the applications layer on top of it, right? And the applications layer has two different code branches, right? But they all work off the same kind of underlying system.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of integration between the suites. It's one of the things that, and this came from my paper experience as a paralegal, right? Is that like, you would review the files, and then you'd make a copy and bait stamp them, and you'd send them to opposing counsel. But then you essentially produced it to yourself, and you had a separate set of files. Like no one jammed together the stuff that was in the responsiveness and privilege review and the stuff that was getting used to actually prepare for depositions. Like those are two separate processes.
Right.
I mean, the point at which when you have an email, right? As soon as you produce it, right, and send it over to the other side, it kind of has an entirely separate history that happens after that. Right? Like, how was it redacted? What depositions was it marked in? How is it, what pleadings did it appear in? Where was it cited? As opposed to before, you're concerned like what custodian did it come from? What was the date? Where, which office was it created in? So, we think that there's a lot of advantages to treating them. Not advantages. They're two separate processes, and trying to jam them all into one, and they have different user bases, right? That's also it's different types of people.
Yeah, but it does seem to make so much sense to at least create a bridge, a connection, a synchronization, whatever you want to call it, between those two processes. It always seemed funny to me that so many e-discovery platforms just stop at production, because that's you finished one stage of preparing for litigation, but there are other stages that follow from that, and you're not usually, you're using essentially the same documents, the same data as you move into the next stage, maybe using it in different ways, but always seems strange to me that so many platforms stop right there.
It is, and I think it is, and I'm happy to talk about it. Having sort of studied that problem for a long time and why that is. There's a bunch of reasons why. But ultimately, what we are, and this is what I kind of was talking about with the system of record, right? What we have with Nextpoint users is they come in and they use the discovery suite, right? And when they produce data, right? They can produce it completely electronically without needing to download and create, without needing to create a load file and without needing to download any data. And they will send the data to a litigation database that they use. And then at no charge, we let them send it to a separate litigation database that's stripped of any attorney work product that then they can give opposing counsel access to, and we don't charge them for 30 days. And so then opposing counsel logs in, and they love it because they get immediate access to their data. It simplifies the entire process. It generates efficiencies, it reduces costs overall. So we think that's the right model going forward.
Right. And I assume also a way to share it with experts and let that work on some of that data.
Absolutely. Yeah. Which, again, the nice thing there is that, now you no longer have a question of what did the experts see. Like,
right.
you segregate because that's all producible, right? Like you're like, as soon as you bring in an expert and send files to them, well, you also have to disclose what did that expert review. Now we have these discrete databases with, user-based audit trails, and there's no question as to, what was sent over and on what date.
Yeah. As we are speaking, you are preparing to have your user conference, your virtual user conference called OnPoint 2021 coming up in just a few days from now. For those listening who aren't users of Nextpoint, there are so many, it was once fairly unique for you to be a cloud-based litigation and e-discovery platform. Now there are a number of cloud-based e-discovery platforms and litigation platforms. So how do you position yourself in this market? How do you describe to others what makes you unique, or what makes you, the product that they should want to use?
Well, it's that history of having done it now for longer than anybody else, right? And that we understand the litigation process from end to end as a complete system of record in a way that the other SaaS-based platforms don't. And that's what's causing them to need to go out and raise all this money, is they're just playing catch up. They are trying to figure out the entire right side of the process. We've already got it figured out. And so for clients, what they benefit from is that they can come in. They know we'll never fire their data, right? They know that that they can get back to the focus of practicing, of working on the practice of law and operating on the business of law. The second key differentiator for us is unlimited data. And so, about 3 years ago, we started really talking seriously about the problems that data was causing within our clients' organizations. And it wasn't a defined set of data, right? The ultimate problem was that, they would say, we want to use your software. And we'd say, well, how much data do you have? And they would say, well, we don't know. And so then, we're early in this process. The case may end after, 1 or 2 productions. It may go, it may go for multiple years in being produced. And it may go inactive for large periods in between, right? Mm-hmm. Where the case isn't moving because they're waiting for the judge to rule on motions to dismiss and summary judgment motions. And so, because we understood these processes so well, because we're from the litigation business, we were like, we got to get away from this per month gigabyte model. Like, this doesn't make any sense, and it is orthogonal to the needs of what our users are. And so we went to these per user plans that feature unlimited data. And so, it gives us all the freedom and flexibility to just talk about what's the thing that needs to happen next in this case at a fixed, predictable, transparent price, so that attorneys can have conversations with their clients about what is this, what is prosecuting this matter really going to cost us?
Yeah. It's become almost kind of standard that I ask people this question these days, but I'm just curious from your perspective, what's been the impact on your business? What's been the impact, do you think, on the industry of the events of the last 19 months?
Has something happened did something happen? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Did I wake you up?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a crazy time for all of us, and we're and I think we're all still processing it and figuring it out, and it's not over yet. OnPoint, we had originally scheduled, in the summer when it looked like, we had sort of nailed it for the first time after vaccinations, right. And then there's this.
We thought we could come out of our caves.
Yeah, and I mean, we started planning for this in the spring, and then all of a sudden there was a Delta variant, and that, kind of completely changed all of our plans. And for our business, unfortunately, it has been a huge accelerant. I think our products became a They went from being like a thing that increased efficiency and things that were nice to have and a way to, practice more efficiently to like we have to have this,
Right.
right?
Right.
It became it was like Zoom, right? Nobody had Zoom before, and then it was like you had to have it all of a sudden. You had to have a video conferencing solution set up. And so that's been, that's been the same for us. So,
Yeah.
I'll talk about it in two different ways. One is what I think it's for the market is that this move to remote and doing things over video and digital and being on the internet all the time is irreversible at this point.
Hmm.
Like that
Yeah.
ship has sailed. And
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many attorneys I've talked to who are like, I was able to make 4 court appearances in different parts of the country that there was no way I could have done them, or I would have been on a plane for 4 days or for the entire week getting ready and, presenting in court in each one of these things. And they're like, we just, this has been great. I'm way more productive. I'm working more efficiently for my clients. So I think that move to remote is really at least some hybrid model, right? Like things are going to, at some point we are going to get together again physically, but I think that the patterns have, the muscle memory is there now.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's what we're anticipating in terms of what it's meant internally for the business. I mean, we were based largely out of Chicago and Madison,
Hmm.
Wisconsin, which is where our Nextpoint Technology Lab is. And that was where the majority of our employees were concentrated. But now you look at it 2 years later, and we're like a fully distributed company. We have folks in 14 different states. We have teams that are working fully remotely, and we're kind of, plotting a sort of return plan around like hoteling models
Hmm.
where, people come in, monthly or quarterly to do some
Huh.
brainstorming with their team, but that they largely, work from home. And so we've provided additional stipends. We've given people budgets to upgrade their home office setup, to get furniture, to buy lights, and get all the technology you need in order to really have that be a pleasurable experience, right?
Yeah. That's interesting. In a prior conversation, you told me that the company is also committed to being carbon neutral by 2023. So that fits with that plan, I guess, right?
Totally. Well,
Mm.
absolutely. And I think, the environmental, climate, social awareness piece of what we do as a business, I think, is something we don't talk enough about in legal technology or in cloud technology. And I think
Right.
that's evidenced by everything that you're seeing with Facebook right now. Like the technology that we build and the way we build it and how people use it have really significant implications on how our society operates, particularly in the legal justice system. And we need to, that needs to be part of our business. That needs to be part of our culture and who we are as people, is thinking about how what we're building and what we do impacts society around us.
Rakesh, before we wrap up, anything else that you wanted to say about the company, about yourself before we finish today?
Well, I mean, I just, we had a company town hall yesterday, and it was terrific, and it's so exciting, and it's been such an amazing transformation to see kind of, the momentum behind us as a company. And we feel like we've been kind of undiscovered, that we've been the best secret in legal technology for a while, and we're pretty excited to change that. We've really refined our product offering. We've refined our the way we deliver our services and the problems that we can fix, and you can just feel that excitement within our staff because they're getting such positive feedback from our clients. And so it's this great virtuous cycle that's kind of spinning forward. And so I'm really looking forward to the next 20 years is kind of where I'm focusing my time now, is thinking about like, what do we do for the next 20, not the past 20.
Yeah. Well, I should say, in preparation for this interview today, actually had a chance to speak to one of your customers. Now, granted, you you made the introduction to him,
Sure.
so I can't say he's entirely neutral, but he certainly seemed to be entirely neutral. And he really was quite happy with the product. But what he was most happy with, I think, overall, was the customer service. I mean, that's what he talked a lot about. So good for you guys for that.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's that's what animates us every day, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what this is about for us is making sure that our customers are feeling like they have a world-class support team behind them. That it's not just, it's not just click this button here, but it's like people who really understand legal, who really understand the process, who can help them navigate this minefield in a really sophisticated way. Because again, it's this ruthless onslaught of technology. It's not going away. This isn't going to change,
Right. Yeah.
So.
Well, congratulations on 20 years. I would say I'd have you back on this podcast in another 20 years to catch up then, but I'm not sure. I hope I'm not still doing this podcast in another 20 years. We'll say maybe I'll be relaxing on a sailboat somewhere or something.
Exactly. Well, or it will be in like some avatar-based, simulation where
Right.
it's just our personas have self-actualized or having their own conversation without us.
Right. Thanks to the chips in our brains.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Bob,
Yeah.
it's such a pleasure to be on this podcast. I've been a big admirer for a long time and have followed you over the years and have really appreciated the discipline and integrity you bring to this process. It's and to the industry. I mean, I think we all struggle a little bit with, feeling like we're maybe not catching a fair shake, but you're you're one of the bright lights. You're a beacon for all of us, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and learn more about us.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's very kind. And again, congratulations on 20 years, and thanks for taking the time to speak with me.
Right on. Appreciate it, Bob. Talk to you soon.
Stay well. I've been speaking with Rakesh Madhava, founder and CEO of the e-discovery and trial preparation company Nextpoint. Thanks to him for joining us, and congratulations to everyone at Nextpoint for marking their 20th anniversary in business. What are your thoughts on today's show? Share them by tweeting us at LawNextPodcast. LawNext is produced, engineered, and edited by Populous Radio. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of Law Next.